Lambs and lions hold no sway over the springtime here in Meriwether County. Some years it will snow through mid-May. Other times the golden sun rides high and bright, and the river flows fast, clear, and deep with high country melt on the first day of March. Most years it's both, with Mother Nature keeping her whims to herself until she alone decides to turn them loose upon us. But this particular Saturday morning was unusually quiet. Not even a breath of breeze stirring the leaves of the cottonwoods that grew thick and untamed along the creek bank. I was standing outside on the gallery, sipping my coffee as I leaned on the porch rail, watching my wife, Jessie, hammer the last nail into a bird box she had made. She must have felt my eyes on her as she looked up from her work and smiled. A few moments later, she stepped up the stairs to where I stood and kissed me on the cheek, smelling of sawdust and lemongrass tea. "The bluebirds are back," she said. "I just saw them." "You haven't lost your knack for building those things." "Plenty of practice." "You got home late last night." I had spent the previous day transporting a man all the way from Lewiston up to the Portland lockup to await his trial. He stood accused of murdering his own wife and young child. It had been a long, depressing day, and by the time I completed the intake paperwork, locked up the substation in Meridian, and finally drove home to the ranch, Jessie was already asleep. But this morning, everything in her expression seemed overflowing with hope and expectation. Springtime was her season, and always had been. "Want a hand putting that thing up?" I asked. She replied by handing it to me, together with the hammer. Jessie watched me hang the bird box on a post beside the vegetable garden from the kitchen window where I knew she'd spend her quiet mornings secretly observing the bluebirds as they built their nest and reared their brood. "You plan on helping Caleb pick the new cowboys today?" she asked me when I came back inside. It was the time of year when we hired a few temporary hands for spring works. When we'd round up the cattle and calves from every corner of the ranch, we'd vet, brand, and sort the livestock and mend a perpetual string of breaks in the wire along miles of fence line before we turned the herd out to the pastures for summer grazing. The Diamond D employed 3 permanent cowboys in addition to me and old Caleb Wheeler, our foreman for more than 3 decades. But with 63,000 deeded acres and another 14,000 under a Bureau of Land Management lease, Springworks was more work than the 5 of us could handle in the short span of time required to get it done. Every year, a couple dozen hopeful itinerant riders, ropers, rodeo bums, and saddle tramps would answer the call for a temporary employment opportunity. And every year, Caleb Wheeler got more riled up about what he viewed as the eroding quality of the contemporary American cowboy. He'd cuss and grump and holler about it, but he'd end up settling on 3 or 4 hands he reckoned could help us get the job done with a minimum of aggravation.